Welcome to self-discoverywisdom.com, formerly known as Self-Discovery Media. On these podcasts, you're going to hear people who speak from the heart. They've taken the journey in life. Many things have happened to them, but they've changed it to happening for them. And in their strength, their courage, they've discovered their abilities and their wisdom, and they are now sharing it here with you. Do enjoy each show. We bring it to you with love and knowing that it's going to help you on your journey of life. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Mental Health Awareness right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my guest today is Siera Sambrosky. Did I do it right?
Yes,
Good.
that's good.
We're going to be talking about a lot of topics today, but one of the things we're going to be talking about is loss, is grief. We think that when we talk about grief, it's about the death of someone, and that very much comes into play. But what about a death of a lifestyle, or death of a marriage, death of a pet, death of yourself? Because we all die somewhere along the line until we discover our rebirth. And I think that's a good topic for us to go about today. But of course, we're going to go off of many things because she is a trailblazer. She's an intuitive, holistic strategist, healer. She combines 2 decades of business consulting experience with rich background in self-directed healing to transform individuals, their lives, their business, and her unique fusion of holistic health, counseling education, neuro-linguistic programming, grief facilitation, certification, and God-given spiritual gifts enables her to guide the clients on their journey to reinvention and regeneration. I love it. I'm going to stop right there because we're going to do the discovery of everything else as we talk to you. Grief. We had people kind of look at grief in a different way during COVID because it was a loss of freedom. It was a loss of, certain other things that went on. And of course, plenty of deaths that went on. But for many people, it was a redirection for the positive. But then, in embracing the positive, sometimes you have to mourn what you've let go of. Otherwise, it kind of becomes a burden you carry forward with you, isn't it? Welcome, Han.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to talk about this and the wide berth that is really grief. I think just as you said, so many people think of grief as just the death of someone. And the reality is, like you said, grief comes every time we have held some part of something as ourselves. You think about the way that we identify ourselves. So many of us identify ourselves as I am a wife.
Yes.
I am a mother. I am an accountant, right? And so whether we intentionally or consciously know it or not, every time we say I am, it's just like when people say we're not really our feelings, we're just experiencing our feelings. But if you keep saying over and over and you have an identity to I am this role or this thing or idea or dream, then it becomes part of as you know yourself.
Yes.
And so when it's gone, you have now lost that chunk. And there's a grief, there's a void, there's a loss there. So,
I've taken to, when I introduce myself as I am Sarah Troy, a podcaster. Right? I am what I do, and what I do is who I am.
right.
But it's like put my own identity first, and then whatever else I'm doing, is what Sarah's doing. And I think what we do is put the identification, as you said, as to what we're doing, or, the wife, the mother, the this and that. Those are things that you also are. But who are you, the person that is all these other things?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, like I said, I think so many of us do that unconsciously. And part of it is also like just programming, societal programming, right? Generational programming. We've been taught for some people that like you are a wife and a mother. And that's why for some people, if they can't find marriage, if they can't have children, again, there's this huge sense of grief and loss around that.
Yes, because it's the expectation. I'm constantly speaking to societal's dictation of expectation of what we should be, and not an embracement of who we are meant to be. right?
Mm-hmm.
And if we get rid of the shoulds, you should be this, you should be married by a certain time, you should have this amount of kids, you should have this kind of career, you should live in this place, you should do this and you should do that. If we let go of that, then we haven't got anything to mourn because it wasn't ours in the first place. It was an illusion, right?
Exactly.
So the discovery of self and who we really are and what we're really meant to become, even though we may have end of chapters, end of periods in our lives, we're
Mm-hmm.
not losing ourselves. We're finding ourselves along the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And it's why I saw such a great need to do the work that I do, was because I realized that, first of all, grief stays in our bodies and causes
Mm-hmm.
all of these health problems, which I don't know how or why I ever became so um, deeply rooted and passionate about people understanding. I don't know where that came from in me, but it just did.
Deep in your core of your being and
Deep
your
in my
purpose.
core.
Yes,
I
yes,
know that people holding on to their emotions are living in their body and they're making them sick.
yes.
And they, that's mentally sick as well as physically sick. And I just think that the oftentimes we just stuff that stuff down.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we go through one of these periods, we just keep moving forward as like a robot in this
Yeah,
same way. And the reality is that every time we shed off one of these shoulds,
yes. A skin.
it, yeah,
Yeah.
it allows us actually to have space to figure out who we really are. But people just don't see it that way.
No.
And that's why they stay stuck.
I would say it's just be that blank canvas and you're in charge of the paintbrush.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Nobody's
Yes.
shoulds or expectations. It is that discovery. What if I just let the brush paint on this
Yeah.
canvas? What picture I want to see for myself? But again, we go back into this. I need to be in control, or I need to do this. I need to, because we've been conditioned that way. We've been
Mm-hmm.
patterned that way. And that you've got to follow a sense of order. Otherwise, you'll be in chaos. I love chaos because from chaos, I see clarity,
Yeah.
right? It's like
Yeah.
throwing everything up in the air and see what lands. I can do something
Yeah.
with that. But we're so scared of chaos because we've been told it's wrong. But
Yeah.
sometimes in the cleaning out of our life, we keep what really is important. We let go of what isn't. But we've got to, I think one of the things that we need to get rid of and not mourn is this conditioning of who we should be. Instead,
Mm-hmm.
take off the shackles, right? The
Absolutely.
freedom of who you are now, your own free will.
Yeah. I mean, we were given free will for a reason.
Exactly.
It was to empower us to have the ability to choose. And when we choose, we create. And we can't create unless something changes.
Yes.
And so, that's the unfortunate side sometimes when people are dealing with grief, is that grief, whatever has changed, is actually an opportunity for you to create something new now,
Yeah.
to give yourself the room and the permission to make a different choice and do differently than you have been doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it becomes about people's perspective, and that's hard. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie, I've had plenty of dark moments in my life, times
Yes.
of grief in my life, for all different sorts of things and in all kinds of ways. And it's hard when you're in that to understand that this is really a creation space that you've
Mm.
just moved into.
Mm-hmm.
But once you get to a place where you realize you're stuck, and I think a lot of people do, they just don't know what to do then to
Yeah.
move forward. And so you just stay stuck, because hearing and understanding I have a chance to make a different choice now isn't always enough. Sometimes we
Yeah.
really need somebody to help us, to show
Yes.
us how to make a choice and what are these choices. And oh my
Who
gosh.
can help us on this path? I mean, this is kind of one of the reasons why I started doing podcasting, is to bring the people who have the hows. They are the people that have gone through it themselves. They know what you're going through, and they've created the house that can help other
Mhm.
people. But a lot of the time it's like, okay, I know I need change. I know
Mhm.
I need to get out
Yeah.
of this situation, but how do I do it? Who do I go to that can help me? What do I do next? And this, for me, it's quite simple. Come and listen to my podcasts. I've got the answers like right
Yeah.
here in front of you. This is the reason why I do them, because somebody else's experience is going to be relatable to you. And the tools and the skills they use to get where they are today is something you can apply to yourself. These
Hmm.
shows always say, listen, learn, and apply.
Hmm.
That's what they're for. But I admit that was me. I was in a marriage and I knew that change had to happen, but I had 3 children. Right. I didn't have an
Hmm.
income of my own because every time I went to work, there was an issue with the children as far as he was concerned. So, in other words, he's suppressed. Right.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
because didn't want me to have that freedom to move on, but I moved on anyway. But it took me a long time from deciding to move on to know how to move on. But I had to be willing to investigate.
Hmm.
Right? Go to courses, speak to other people, explore other options. You don't have to do it tomorrow, but start the process, which is really important,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And I say that all the time. Like when I do work with somebody, a lot of times I'll say to them, this is not for you to necessarily do right now.
Right.
This is for you to know that this is in your path. This can be in your path
Mm.
should you take the choices and the actions whenever you feel ready.
Yes.
Just like relationships,
Hmm.
right? Like we get many of us, I shouldn't
Hmm.
say not everybody, but many of us will get to a place in a relationship where we know this relationship is not good for us. We've
Exactly.
tried the things, we've done the things, and it's not changing.
It's
And
not
we're just
serving
feeling,
us, it's
yeah,
suppressing us. Yes.
exactly. And we're just feeling worse and worse as
Hmm.
the days go on. Um, and I think a lot of times I will say to somebody, until you're like sick of yourself, until
Hmm.
you're just, I cannot take myself anymore,
Hmm.
then you'll make the change. And so it doesn't matter how long we know in our heads that we should make the change, right? It becomes about, when do we really feel in
Ready.
ourselves, I can't take this
Yeah.
anymore, like
Yeah.
being at that breaking point. And it's unfortunate that so many of us won't give ourselves permission
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
move forward, to make that choice until we're like at a breaking point. And
Yeah.
that's true even with, like you just said, about listening to other people and
Hmm.
hearing other people having gone through the same things. I think what it really does and why it can click for somebody is because it gives us permission.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
All of a sudden
Yes.
we're like, oh, they did this. I
Well, why
guess that
can't
means
I?
I can do it
Yeah,
too. Yeah.
exactly.
Uh-huh.
Exactly. And I'm not alone in this. Other
Yeah.
people have gone through it. It's okay for me to place this value on myself, right?
Hmm.
And, I think one of the things that steps into any form of change, especially if it is in a marriage that is breaking up, or if you've been in a long time career somewhere, is the guilt. Well,
Oh
should I
yeah.
just put up with it? Or, is it just me? Am I just moaning? Am I lucky to have this marriage or job or friends, etc.?
Hmm.
And if it comes back in your own subconscious of, but how do you feel? Well, I'm miserable. Well, what does that tell you?
Hmm.
Listen to your inner self.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the educational process
Mm,
of your podcasts for sure, is that, again, and it's giving people permission. We don't know that our feelings are really a compass for us.
mhm, mhm.
People come to me for intuitive guidance on things as well as practical steps, right? But I say to them all the time, you already know this. I'm
Yes,
never telling you something that some part of you somewhere doesn't already know.
you're just opening the door you're revealing.
Yeah. Yeah, I might
Yeah,
just help jump them forward a
yeah.
little
And
bit.
that's all you can do
Speeds it
because
up.
they've got to walk the walk.
Hmm.
But what you're doing is showing them everything you are telling me is everything you already know. And now is, what are you going to do about it? And I can open that door for you. I can put the skills and the tools in your backpack, but you still got to walk it.
Mm-hmm.
right? Nobody
Yeah.
can do it for you, but sometimes it's just that nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Get out the door. Here's the backpack. Take those steps forward. And
Yeah.
sometimes we've just got to find that bravado to
Mm-hmm.
go, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going
Yeah.
to be selfish if you think it's selfish, because if
Yeah.
you're not living in your own self-worth, you are not giving your authentic self to anyone, right? You're giving
Definitely not.
expectation. You're not giving your truth. You owe it to yourself. And consequently, everybody else you interact with on every level of your life to be your truth. And if you know you're living a lie because you're not honoring yourself, your own gift, your own essence, then how can you be of benefit to anyone else?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's so much in what you just said. Like you said, I go back to what you were saying about how are you feeling and that being your compass. And
Mm.
again, I think this becomes part of what we've been taught, programmed into is that, feelings are to be dismissed. Like there's no place to be emotional. Don't have an emotional reaction. Don't make an emotional decision.
Mm.
Okay, well, I'm here to say, how about you freaking do? Like, how
Yes.
about you actually do for the first time
Yes.
ever, not be in your head and instead go, how does this feel to me?
Yes.
What decision would make me feel better?
Mm.
Make that kind of emotional decision. Because, like I said, I think that we've been taught to, repress our emotions and ignore our emotions and don't come from that place. But that's why so many people are lost and disconnected from their real selves because they're not paying attention to what their emotions are. So it doesn't mean you have to end the marriage
Yeah.
necessarily, but it means there's something freaking wrong. Like
Yes.
if you're feeling suffocated every day,
Mhm.
something is wrong,
Yes.
desperately wrong.
Yes. And it's not up to the other person to change for you. It's for you to change for yourself. And if it then complements the marriage or the relationship, then the other person is going to see you in a different light and perhaps in their, look at their own light and their own
Mm-hmm.
essence. We have to understand that no matter what's happening in that marriage, whether it is browbeating, whether it's abuse, or whether it's just, you're not being nice to each other because you're
Mm-hmm.
imposing on each other your own pain, right? And taking it out on each other. Somewhere along the line, we have to go, you know what? My discontent is my responsibility.
Absolutely. And where do I value myself in
Mm-hmm.
all of this?
Mm-hmm.
Where is it? I was divorced, oh gosh, almost 20 years ago now.
Me too. Going on
But
23, so a little ahead of you.
um, but I had sort of a really ideal sort of situation. I mean, my ex-husband was a very good man. I mean, I still to this day have nothing bad to say about him at all. And I can't say that we were being unkind to each other in any way, but I knew that I was being unkind to myself,
You weren't being
that
true.
I was not, and that
Mm-hmm.
there was this whole part of me that, you mentioned about guilt earlier, like
Mm-hmm.
I went into therapy on my own because I thought for sure there was something wrong
Yeah.
with me, that I had this nice husband who worked hard and came home and he didn't drink too much and he didn't beat me. And,
Mm-hmm.
we had a very nice life. He was a great person. And I felt so deeply dissatisfied
Mm-hmm.
that I was depressed.
You're
And
right.
I was like, clearly there's something wrong with me. Or clearly this is not about him. And, I was in therapy for years. And then we even tried different forms of marriage counseling before I finally was like, there's just this container is
Mm.
never going to serve me.
There
And
isn't
it's
there
not
isn't
that.
the connection. And the thing is we don't look for someone to complete us. We look for people to complement us.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean, oh, you're pretty, you're this, that. I mean complement in the way of your essence and your being. There's you, there's them, right? Two individuals strong on who they are. Who are you when you come together? When
Yes.
you lock together, can you merge those beautiful personalities and become a beacon of light together? But if you're not a beacon of light individually, then what are you bringing to the collective?
Yeah. I wasn't bringing anything. I'll be
Mm.
honest with you.
Well, and if
I mean, very
you weren't
little.
in your right vibe.
I was
right?
not.
Right. And that, what you are an intuitive, which I love. And we all are. It's just that you own it.
Yes.
Right. And that is what in the feeling, I would say we have to feel our thoughts, don't think them. Think them as analytical. It's database. But when
Mm-hmm.
we feel them, when we allow it to come from our soul, go into our heart, into truth, go into our spirit, into action, our mind will know what it needs to know when it needs to know it. And then we really know we're trusting what I call the God, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we know,
Mm-hmm.
this is right or this isn't right. I sometimes just do not need to analyze why or why not. I just need to honor that feeling.
Yeah. And I think, like I said, so few of us really do that. And I think that, certainly for me, every single one of the choices that have brought me heartache,
Mm-hmm.
everything that I've had to let go of that was so painful, it was always because I was letting my mind and the logic
Yes.
and the data
Yes.
and the standards and the expectations that I felt
Yeah.
dictate what just was not mine. And it's literally like forcing a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah. The
Like it
shoulds,
just
the
becomes
shoulds, right?
painful.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
it
Yes.
becomes painful.
Because it
And
wasn't your fit.
yeah,
It wasn't your role in life. It wasn't your purpose in life. It
no.
wasn't your journey in life. It was one that you've been conditioned to told that that's what you had to do. All right.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. And for me, it was about I was never going to really be able to be fully formed in who
Mm,
I needed to be my best self
yeah.
and to give to people in the best way as long as I was in that marriage because I was playing a very codependent role, right?
Right.
Where I didn't want to like outgrow or outshine or make him, and not that he was like that at all.
Yeah.
I think but I wanted a partner that was going to grow and elevate with me,
And
and that
cheer
was
you
not going to
on and
happen.
comfort you
Yeah,
and explore with you,
yeah,
a partner, a true
yeah.
partner. Right. And it was just like you married a friend.
I did.
And it wasn't meant to be
Yeah,
that,
it served
that
its purpose.
relationship. And so we do that, why do we marry? When somebody like, you're not the woman I married. No, I hope not. I hope that I've
Exactly.
grown. I hope that the wonder and the exploration of life has allowed me to grow. And you want a partner that sometimes you may be ahead of them, sometimes they're ahead of you, and sometimes you're in sync together, but somebody that is your cheerleader, that wind behind your back, or sometimes those arms around you when things aren't working out. Right? That
Exactly.
is a true partnership. It's people that want you to excel because to do
Hmm.
so and you are happy, is the relationship happy, right? On
Yeah.
both sides. So you need that spark of light in your life, whether it is
Mhm.
a love partner, whether it is a business or company that you're working at, whether it's your friends around you. You want
Sure.
people that I call the vibe tribe. They're on the
Mhm.
same frequency as you, and everybody is looking out for each other. They don't have to be in each other's back door 24/7, may not see each other for weeks on end. But
Mhm.
when you do, you pick up on that vibe, and it's the celebration of your
Mhm.
life and life in general. And you know it,
Mhm.
you feel it. And that's
Yeah.
when I think you look back at things and you think, at the time, I thought it was a loss. I had 20 years in a marriage and I stuck around for kind of a couple of years when I asked for the end of the marriage before he realized it was gone, and then he went to his
Mhm.
girlfriend. So, it was finally I had to let him go on his terms, right? So I
Mhm.
planted seeds and I watered them, and when they grew, then he could cut them and go. There wasn't a good marriage in the sense of the browbeating, the piranhaing. He was a energy sucker,
Mhm.
completely. But it's when I took control back of my own life and go, hang on, why am I allowing you to do this to me? Right? I have got to
Mhm.
take some responsibility that I'm giving you the boots for you to kick me with. I'm
Yeah.
going to stop giving you those boots. I'm going to place value on myself. Even I have to look deep for it, look everywhere else for it. I'm going to do that. And when it came to me asking for a divorce, it's, I've lost the control I had over you. And that's where our marriage summed up as control. I'd
Mhm.
given him that control. I can't
Sure.
blame him for taking it. I'd given it. How many of us do because we're brought up to be the dutiful wife, the dutiful partner, right? Happy wife, happy marriage, and all of that type of thing. Happy husband, make sure the food's on the table and the smile and yes, dear,
Mm-hmm.
we can go to bed now,
Yeah.
all of that type of thing. And it's like, where are we honoring each other in that?
Mm-hmm. And we do that in all kinds of
Yes,
situations, right?
yes,
Like we put this external value
mm,
of ourselves on other people or things being great or looking
yes.
really good, and
Crazy.
whether, yeah, and whether, that's the truth. And I think that's part of the reason why, too. I know certainly I've worked with some women where, like, it's been a huge sense of grief and loss to them when they've had a child that
Yeah,
struggled with
yes,
addiction
yes,
or going to jail or whatever these different things are, because it makes you feel like you failed.
yes.
And it
Hmm.
only can make you feel like you failed if you're putting some kind of personal value on this societal expectation
Yeah.
of, if you had done a good job, if you had been a good mother, then your child wouldn't be in this situation. And
How
that's
many
just not
times,
true.
no, but how many times do we see people who have gone through emotional or physical or sexual abuse
Mm-hmm.
only to say, I'll never do that to my children, only to turn around and do it?
Mm-hmm.
And we go, why? Surely they know how painful that is. And that is because it's the only programming they know. It's the only
Mm-hmm.
pattern they know. And when we look at a pattern that is bad for us, we have to look at that program and delete it. We have to look at it face on and go, this is somebody else's imposition that's been put on you. You can say no more, delete that program. I am of free will going to rewrite my program. But we've
Mm-hmm.
got to register that there is an old programming that's steering the ship from the back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I break everything, every processing of emotions down into the three stages of recognition, honesty, and then acceptance. And so
Yes.
first you have to recognize it, and then you have to be honest about it, and then you have to accept it.
Yeah.
Because if you stop in any one of those three places, then there's no change that
Right.
happens.
And two words, no blame, no shame,
Yeah.
right? What has been, has been. It's the same with the consciousness that is rising in humanity right now. Many people are waking up and realize, oh my God, I wasn't aware I was doing this. I wasn't aware I was doing this
Mm-hmm.
to the planet. I wasn't aware that my consumerism, my this and that was harming this and that. I wasn't aware that I was being mean to somebody or this, that, etc. When you're aware, don't beat yourself up for what you have done. That's
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
Look at how you are now and what you are going to choose to do differently. So I think
Mm-hmm.
the shame and blame, when we wake up to that, we realize that this pattern was harming us and harming others. Don't go down the blame game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't serve anybody.
No.
Again, that's not really accepting it, then that's just staying stuck in the cycle
Yes.
of it.
Yeah. Or,
And
definitely
it's not
don't.
being honest about it
No,
either. Because
no.
as long as you're shaming yourself, then you're judging yourself. As long as you're
Yes.
blaming somebody else, then you're judging them. And there's no honesty or truth in judgment. That's
and
just
and
perception.
no accountability for
None.
yourself, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, yes, I did it. I look back, I'm 68. Believe me, I've got some things to look back on. And I
Yeah.
go, whoa, where was I at that time? And it's like, that is where I was at that time. That was my thought process. So that is the mindset that I was in. And I look back on it and shudder now. But because I know how wrong that is, that means I'm never going to do that again.
Mm-hmm.
So it's as we awaken to what serves us and what doesn't serve us, what serves, we're all contributors to the planet. When we discover what our purpose is and what our contribution is, then we're truly stepping into our light. We're
Mm-hmm.
allowing our light to shine. That journey in getting there is an awful lot of get rid of the past. Now, I don't say forget it. I
No,
wanted
I don't either.
one of the things, especially with grief, and I live with someone who's almost 90. She had a twin sister
Mm.
who died. And then literally weeks later, she ended up 4 years in hospital with polio. Her mother didn't come to see her. Her mother favored the other daughter, and they deleted all the photographs and all conversation to do with her sister. And then her fiance was killed 4 days before the wedding. And
Oh,
again, the family did the same. And she has no photographs, nothing of him. That does not heal grief.
No.
That just pushes it so deep down inside. And the mother developed this disease, and I can't remember what it is, but she would not go out of her house. And so
Hmm.
while her daughter is in hospital, battling for her life with the polio, having God knows how many operations, the mother wasn't around.
Mm.
So how does it make that child feel?
Oh yeah.
Right?
I mean, that's one of the other things too that I see very commonly is grief around our mother wounds or our parent
Mm.
wounds is huge.
Yes.
And people think, no, I've worked on it in therapy. I've forgiven them. I
Mm.
understand where they came from, what they've done, why they did it, that it was that generation. That's just how people like they feel like they've given all this forgiveness around it. Well, that's awesome. And that's an important step. But if you don't acknowledge that there's some part of you, that there's still that little girl or
Yeah.
boy in
Yeah.
you that is grieving, that
Mm.
is lost and scared and feels abandoned and alone, you're never really going to heal. You're still placing yourself in that old patterning,
Yes.
even if it's energetic, even if it's subconscious,
Hmm.
of being in this place of being stuck in the grief and feeling lost and abandoned and all the other things that grief and loss bring up.
The mind can be as rational and as logical as it like. It's the same with depression. No snapping out of it. There's no ream rising or anything. You can't negotiate with depression. Nothing the mind does can do that. It is a feeling of despair that somebody's pulling your guts out, and there is no rationalization around it. And it's the same with that lost child. And I remember somebody saying, why are you not grieving for that child and the child's loss? Your rationality, your parents did the best they could. It was this, it was
Mm-hmm.
that. That is your comprehension of the situation. But that's got nothing to do with the emotion of the feeling that you had around it. I've just written my memoir, and it's more of my perspective on my life and how I've got to where I am now. So I don't go deep and dark into the pain and this and that. But one thing I did notice was the as a very spiritual person and have been all my life, there was a disconnect from humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Where you couldn't be the spiritual person, otherwise you were a bit loopy, right?
Oh yeah, I
So
know all about
yeah,
that.
so being a seer, being a reader, being that empath, that knowingness, favored me sometimes and not others.
Right.
And but I was a very sickly child and spent a great deal on my own. And I would get breakfast, I'll get lunch, I'll get dinner. When I had an asthma attack, my mum was there, but otherwise I was left alone. Now, we
Mm-hmm.
didn't have radio or iPhones or tablets or TV even in
Mm-hmm.
those days, right? Yes, I'm
Mm-hmm.
from the dark ages, folks. You know, we didn't have that. So I had to go into other dimensions to live because this one sucked. And I realized that that disconnect from humanity has been something I've been carrying with me all my life because as a very spiritual person, it's only now that I'm really seeing souls rise and that we
Mm-hmm.
can play together. But growing
Mm-hmm.
up, it wasn't there. But also a sense of feeling of abandonment because
Sure.
left alone. And I was the youngest child, and never expected to do much. And so, it was always that kind of feeling that I didn't count. I was a disappointment. And even though I know rationally and logically X, Y, and Z, the little child in me had to be told that she was loved and that she's okay and that she's valued from me, not from anyone else, from
Mm-hmm.
me, right? And that's
Yeah.
something that we don't do enough. We don't recognize that in a child. Stop whining, get over it. That was ages ago. You're here now. No, 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 no. That child is with you forever and more,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Yes, and we
make
have to
sure
reparent
that child
ourselves.
is happy.
Yeah. Yeah, and we have to reparent ourselves or else
Yes.
we, like I said, subconsciously we are operating from a program
Yeah.
forever that in some way, shape, or form, to some degree or another, is being influenced by the way that that child is not healed, for
Yes.
sure. Yeah.
I have a series coming up, a collaborative of chapters, and it's called the Forgotten Children series. And it is about that. What can we do better for our children in raising them?
Mm-hmm.
And part of it is this they are beautiful, creative, spiritual entities when they're young. And if we tap into that beautiful energy, that exploration, that creativity, and nurture that,
Mm-hmm.
instead of sending to school and then go, you must conform. You
Mm-hmm.
have to do it this way. Don't you think out of the box. And we
Mm-hmm.
kill that creativity. And then later on in life, it's bursting to come back out again. And then
Mm-hmm.
you have people with, it's called midlife crisis, but people, when they go realize, I have not been living true to myself. I've been
Yeah.
living a lie. And I've always wanted to do that. I can't tell you how many shows
Oh
I've
yeah.
done on that where people have said, I always wanted to do this, but even show this week with Susan that you will get to hear. She was the artist, and by the age of 10, it's like, oh, this is frivolous. I want to be an artist, ma'am. No, no, you never be an artist. It's never sensible. You'll never make money out of that. And it killed her
Mm-hmm.
artistry right there
Mm-hmm.
until it came out at the age of 42,
Mm-hmm.
begging to come out of her again.
Yeah.
Well, why aren't we nurturing those children when they're young to tap into that beautiful spirit of creativity, allowing that child the voice, allowing them to explore? Why can't they be our teachers?
Mm-hmm. Well, they really are. I mean,
Yeah.
and I think thankfully we're seeing a shift in that. I think
Yes.
thankfully we are seeing more of this space. And I have a grown daughter and I have three grandsons. And so
I've got
my
two
really
ahead of me.
I love them so much.
Yes, yes.
Um, but I'm like, it's no lie. I'm a very different grandmother than I was mother.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I still apologize to my daughter. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I wanted you to like do certain things and like we'll do it this way and oh that's too much of a mess and like
Mm.
there were those things that especially since I was very young when I had her, so I think there was a lot of healing and learning that I needed to do anyway. But to see them now and they like want to do something that would have made me cringe had it been my daughter, right? And
Yes,
I'm like, I have such a different perspective. I'm like, oh
absolutely.
really?
Hmm.
That's how you see it?
Yes.
Tell me about that, and
You
I'm
have
think
more chance to observe and see them for who they are when you're a mother, especially a
exactly.
new mother. It's like the next feed, the next this, the next this, the next that, and you're on automation.
Yeah.
My daughter said to me, Mom, how did you do it with three? I said, I don't know. I just did. Right? Whatever was expected next, you did. But
Yeah.
as a grandparent, you've got more time to kind of sit back and observe. And I love watching my 27-month-old grandson. He loves cars and he plays with them and he takes them on a ride and he brings them over your body. And he's got little expressions going on in his face. He's
Yeah.
got a plan. He's going somewhere. Don't interrupt that plan, right?
Yeah.
Just observe and see
Yeah.
where he goes. And then it becomes really methodical how he lines everything up. And he's always got a purpose. When if
Yeah.
we said, no, no, you're doing it wrong. No, you've got to do this. You've got to do that. We're killing that creativity.
Absolutely. And I think one of the biggest gifts that we can give to them is to honor and hold space for their emotions too.
Yes.
Just as we were talking about how we as
Mm-hmm.
adults don't pay enough homage and respect and pay attention and listen to our emotions enough.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I could gift anything to this young generation that's just coming on the planet, like it's to help them to be able to really get familiar, in touch, and know what their emotions are, so
Yes.
to see them get real frustrated and want to act out. Okay, so what's going on right now?
Right.
Are you feeling scared? Are you
Mm.
frustrated? Because obviously they don't have cognitive
Right.
abilities to be able to
Understand why they're
yeah,
feeling
they're
that
just
way. Yeah.
acting out. But I mean, if we can start teaching them now, hey, my emotions are some kind of flag. They're a sign.
Yes.
Where is it pointing? What does it
Right.
need me to look at and pay
Yes.
attention to right
Yes.
now? And I think if we can do that with kids, I mean,
Yeah.
I think that
But
too
my
would
my
just
daughter
change
and her
everything.
husband, when he plays up and does a spasm, they stop him and they go, okay, now breathe, breathe. And you see him going, ah! And he forces himself to breathe. Okay, now what is the problem? Right? And I'm a redirector. So it's like when my kids used to play up and drive me crazy, I start singing opera and they'll do anything to shut me up. But they've forgotten what they were fighting about, right? So
Right.
it's kind of the redirecting. But I've also got the grandma look, and he looks at me when he's doing something, when he's trying to rile his parents up, and he looks at me, and I'm giving him the look, the disapproving look. No words, nothing, just the disapproving look. Ah, ah, looking at me. So we have our techniques, but it's letting him know that, okay, I know that that particular scream and shout and demand at the present moment is you pushing the limits to see how far you can get. It's
Mm-hmm.
very different from when you are feeling frustrated that you can't articulate yourself and you're anxious about something. Then,
Mm-hmm.
yes, we take the breath. What can I do? How can I
Mm-hmm.
address this? The one thing as I say about all of us, our emotions are there for a reason. They're an indication of where we're
Absolutely.
at.
Mm-hmm.
Look at it, deal with it, but don't become emotional about the emotion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It goes back to that whole I am thing. It's like
Mm.
saying, well, I am angry. No,
Yes.
you're not. You're feeling angry. There's
Yes.
a very big difference.
Very big difference.
But if
Yes.
we're saying this all the time,
That's
and
what our
again, it
psyche's
puts,
picking up. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and it puts this charge into the
Mm.
emotion that it's overpowering and it can't be controlled, it can't be looked at. It's just something that has to be dealt with or felt, and that we just don't have control over it. And that's
Yeah.
just not true.
Yes.
You know, it's
And the
like
thing
we
is,
were
there
saying.
are some things in
God,
life we don't have control over.
of
But what
course.
we do have control is how we react to it.
Absolutely.
And the more that we're willing to observe instead of react, the
Mm-hmm.
more power we have in to know how to react to the situation. We are very much conditioned to react, the flight or fight,
Mm-hmm.
or the scream and shout, and it's the protesting. Yes, now
Mm-hmm.
of course, if you're being beaten up and things like this, you can't take a pause. Hang on a moment, I'm just assessing this. No,
Yeah.
you've got to
Yeah.
fight back. But there are times when it becomes the verbal fight, where the question needs to be, do I need to interact with this?
Mm-hmm.
Or do I need to say, okay, I'm going to go away and think about this. I'd like you
Yeah.
to do the same, and we'll come back. And what I've learned, especially with men, is write. Ask them to write it out, how they feel about the situation. You write it out and ask them to read it before they give it. And 9 times out of 10, they will tear that up and rewrite. The frustration has been written, right? Now you
Mm-hmm.
can actually look at, well, what really is the problem? I've got the frustration out of the way. What really is the issue? And how
Mm-hmm.
can we address it? Defuse the reaction, and they'll be able to come back with level head and hearts to what the issue is.
Yeah. And I think for ourselves, when we really want to say, whoa, what is going on? Why am I reacting
Yeah.
this way? I always tell people one of the key things you can do is ask yourself why.
Yes.
This
And
made
be
me sad.
patient enough to listen.
Why? And then
Yes.
ask yourself why 2 to 4 more times. Like do
Yes.
at least 3 to 5 whys.
Yes.
Why did this make me sad? Well, because that's not what I wanted them to do.
Right.
Why?
Right.
Because I wanted them to act the way that I wanted them to act.
Mhm.
Why? Because I think I'm right.
Yeah.
Why? And
Yeah.
so but keep going, like keep
Yes.
asking yourself that why, and you'll find out what the real trigger actually is. It's like we're never really mad about the dirty dish being left in the sink again, even though there's a dishwasher
Yeah.
18 inches away, right? Like that's not ever what it's really about. It's really always about some other internal why. And
It's a
so,
lack of respect that they don't put it in the dishwasher, right? We'll always internalize it as to something that has been disrespectful towards us.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
would ask you, why do you find that
Yeah.
disrespectful?
Right. Right.
Because when you look at it, and when somebody asks you, why do you find that disrespectful? Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
So is it really, or are you attaching some kind of
Yes.
value, some kind of meaning to this? Where does that come from? Keep asking the why, and I think that's how we can really start to process things on our own and get to a deeper place of acceptance. Like I said, again, I always feel like that's one of the keys, because in acceptance, there's no more judgment. And so, because accepting and tolerating are not the same
No, no, no. Tolerate is you'll
thing.
put up with it. Accepting is you accept the situation
Right.
for what it is,
Without judgment.
without
Yeah.
judgment. And I think another really big thing, I had this recently with a couple I know, and it's, one has had a lot of pain in her life. So when things don't go right or they get into a fight, she brings all that baggage up to the front and poses it on him.
Mm.
And then he triggers because he doesn't know what to do with it. And the next thing you have a volcanic eruption. Right.
Yeah,
So
sure.
I do every week a 4 or 5 minute blurb out there. And I just did a blurb on that to be mindful when we're in a situation of frustration, that we don't impose on the people that we care about all the garbage from our past. They didn't create that garbage. It's got nothing to do with them. They're there to support you and
Hmm.
love you. And if
Hmm.
you keep winning and dumping your garbage on top of them, don't expect them to stay around.
Hmm.
Because after a while, it gets too smelly and they have to move on.
Yeah,
Right. And we have to be
yeah,
mindful of that because we are in reaction. And what happens? The floodgates of everything that everybody's ever done wrong to you. And suddenly this person is being dumped on and go, what the hell did I do?
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and we have to be mindful of the fact that your experience and the way you experience something is strictly yours,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you have siblings, you could have both been at the exact same Christmas that morning where you have an understanding that all hell broke loose
Yes.
and there was this big family fight. And the other siblings are like, no, it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, but that's something then that maybe you carry around, that there was this big traumatic thing around Christmas. And so it ruined all Christmases. You always get this terrible anxiety around
Yes.
Christmases. Nobody else has it.
My brother has that. He bought for my for his nephew, our nephew, an outfit, kind of a soldier's outfit, because because his nephew loved playing soldier. But what he didn't realize, it was kind of a Nazi type outfit. And so,
Whoops.
he just bought a kid outfit. He was a bit
Yeah.
clueless as to what it was, bought it with good intentions. But my sister, World War Four, five, six, and seven, kind
Oh
of
boy.
went on there. I mean, total. And when she gets into it, it's literally that, and you run.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so he hates Christmas. And unfortunately, the only the two of them left in England. So they do spend Christmas together and he dreads it every year.
Oh,
He carries
that's
that pain with
terrible.
him every year. Right.
Yeah.
And he's
And
become a humbug.
I was just saying, what's the nephew think? Does he even remember this?
No, not at all.
Yes, exactly.
Not at all. And instead of kind of laughing at it, look, Sam, do you realize what you've got? You bought here.
Mm-hmm.
How can we patch it up to make it look like something else and laugh at it? Right.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, it became this volcanic eruption. And, I kind of say Fox News does this. They take a pimple and make it into a volcanic eruption. And we've got
Yeah,
to be careful because that hysteria, we know, misconstrues truth. It takes
absolutely.
away all power from people to take that breath and look at a situation as whether truth or not,
Yeah.
because we're brought up into in the hysteria, and we've got to be careful about that in our own life. That
Mm-hmm.
when we become hysterical over something, it may be to do with the situation you're in right now, but I guarantee you it's something that you've lost in the past that's
Absolutely.
governing the ship that
Yeah.
you
And
haven't
that's
dealt with the grieving of.
exactly. And that's why I bring up the point about we need to be very cognizant and train ourselves to remember that
Mm-hmm.
whatever experiences we had, however we experience something, is not true for a
Yeah,
single other person on the planet. It is true for you. It is not reality for anyone else.
right.
And so I think that also kind of helps to take the charge out of the re-triggering of things, and certainly in the blaming of other people
Right.
for, ruining your
Everything.
Christmas
Yes, yes,
forever or
yeah.
whatever, right?
And I
Yeah.
think, the word responsibility and accountability, we love to point a finger, but there's three pointing right back at us.
Mhm.
Right? Are you accountable of your own reaction? All right. Are you responsible for the way you're interacting? All right. Because are you again imposing your garbage, your fears, your
Mhm.
insecurity,
Mhm.
your choice to loathe and hate instead of feeding the love? Right? This is your choice that you're doing this. Where is it coming from? And are you going, no, 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 I'm going to ignore that. I have every right to be angry. This happened to me and that happened to me. I'm sorry, folks, shit happens to everyone. It
Absolutely.
does. Right? But
Absolutely.
if you keep it
All
in
day
the
long.
toilet, it's going to stink. Flush that damn chain, man. right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. 100%. 100%. And again, going back to the grief thing, like that's why it's so important that at some point we start to process it, that we
Mm.
start to let it go and move through it, because it is now making everything else in your life smell. It is
Yes.
absolutely making
Poof.
everything else in your life smell. I
Exactly.
promise you.
It changes
I
the
promise
odor
you.
of everything around you.
Sure.
Everything.
It
Um,
changes your experience
yes,
around everything,
everything.
because now it's a different lens that we are seeing everything through. And that's why we have to really, we don't have to, but you have a choice, a
Yes.
healthy and good and for your highest and best good
If you
choice,
choose to, this is
if
the
you
most
choose
hard
to,
section.
right, to move through it
Mhm.
and to use that to acknowledge and say, with honesty, with acceptance, everything is now different.
Yes,
I will never drink my coffee the same way. I
right.
don't do anything the same way. I don't go to work the same way. Now that this has happened, there is a part of me that is different. And so, where else do I need to make those adjustments? Where else do I need to change? Because we can't keep doing everything else the same, but one little piece has changed. We
Right,
can't
exactly.
compartmentalize
No,
things. We
I
like
know.
to think we can, but
I've interviewed people who have had things happen to them that should never happen to a human being.
sure.
No other human being had the right to do to them what happened to them. And they, really became broken creatures. But they did the beautiful Oriental thing of put themselves back together with gold,
Mm,
right?
yes.
Those
Yeah,
pieces
that's
will
beautiful.
always be broken. They can't be fused back together as a complete whole. But putting them back together with gold, they've made themselves stronger. And they're now a unique piece. I call it flawsome. We've all got
Hmm.
flaws, right? And those flaws make us who we are. And we can be awesome with those flaws as long as those flaws are just a quirk of who we are, not a detriment, right?
I love that, Sarah.
But the beauty of these people's stories is they can say that same story over and over again of what happened to them. And people say, but how can they relive that? No, they're not reliving it. They're retelling it. The living of the pain has been done, been spent, gone. They can retell that story without reliving it because they're
Hmm.
not in the pain to tell you the story.
Hmm.
They've moved on. And that's something I realized in writing my own memoir is that I can look back at some things done to me and I can say this was done, but I don't have any feelings attached to it anymore.
Yeah.
Right? I've healed that. So I can state ABC happened, wasn't very pleasant. As Trevor Noah says, you don't have to enjoy the experience, but who you
Right.
become because of the experience is what you do enjoy,
Right.
right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
everything that's happened to us is made us who we are today. Can we look at our past and talk about it without getting upset? Because if we can, then we know we've done the work,
Hmm.
right? And if
Hmm.
we can't, if we're still getting upset about it, then we know there's work still to do.
Yeah. And I would go even a step further. And I would say the difference is this: when you're having an emotional reaction, you're still drawing power
Mm,
off of that story.
yes.
When you're able to retell it, you are now giving the power of that story away.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. That's
Hmm.
how you shift being in victim mode and wanting to relive a story, because it's serving something that feeds some sort of power in you.
Right. So you,
But the second you are able to tell it and
yes,
have it with intention,
yes.
give power to other people,
Empowering other people, all
yeah,
right, not
with the
powering this,
story.
not powering the situation.
Exactly.
Exactly. And that's, that's when you know how far you've come.
Hmm.
Right now, I can still, I've got, somebody that I interviewed, Kathy Nog, Knogg, a lovely artist. And she said to me, I want to give you a painting. I haven't donated, and she donated beautifully, but I want to give you a painting. And at the end of our show, she said, would you like one of your dog? Now, my dog has been gone 7 years this year. Right, but I
Oh,
still miss her. She was my best
sure.
friend. I got her to replace my husband, the very best thing I ever did. Right, the
Yeah.
very best friend I could ever have. And my kids, oh, you loved her more, and I said no. The only difference was she loved me unconditionally.
Mhm.
No ifs, ands, and buts, and no this and that. She loved me unconditionally. And so she did a portrait, and I've got it right there staring at my eye every
Oh.
day, this beautiful little dog looking at me. Do I still mourn her loss? I miss her, right?
Hmm.
But my heart isn't broken because of it. I just miss her
Yeah.
because of that beautiful, divine, loving energy that she gave me, right? But you find that loving energy in different arenas. Is it the same signature? No. So
Absolutely
you can
not.
still look at the things that you've lost in life, right? And you can look at, for me, one of the things I can mourn is the loss of time. I spent
Hmm.
too much time in my situations trying to make it work instead of calling it quits and going, getting on with life,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Right?
I was
And
just
so,
talking about that. My pattern. I've also have that same pattern where I
and,
stay in something way too long,
and we give
thinking,
away our time.
yeah,
That's so precious to us. We give it, how many years have I given to other people in trying to be what they wanted me to be, only, at the suffering of myself. And I mourn the time because I'd love to get it back because I now know what to do with it. All right. So
yes,
the lesson, please, folks, is that go through your grieving, whatever the grieving is. Don't waste time, please.
yes,
That
yes.
is something you can't get back, however rich or powerful you are. You can't get that time back. What you do with the time now is so much more enriched and abundant and more
Hmm.
purposeful. You're not wasting the time. But imagine if you had that empowerment earlier on instead of wasting the time. Well, it's me. I've got to make it work. Or well, wait, if I just did this or if I just did that,
Hmm.
oh, I'm never going to get any better. I should just settle. Boulder dash, boulder dash, boulder dash.
Hmm. Hmm. And I guarantee, I'm sure you would also, that once you do get to the other side of it, you 100% are going to look back and go, why did I spend so much time?
Exactly.
Like it's truly a guarantee.
Yes.
It's truly a guarantee that once you do process through whatever and move on, we always are like, oh, why'd we do that? Why'd we do that? Why
And it's
didn't
never
I
too late. It's
give that
never
back
too
to
late. It
myself?
doesn't matter what age you are. I mean,
Never.
I have been, it's nearly 23 years since I asked my husband for a divorce. And as I said, he didn't leave straight away. So we lived separately in the house and yeah, go to his girlfriend. And eventually I said, I think it's time, for you to move out, right?
Yeah.
And but it had to be something that had to be his choice because if it was my choice, then it was denied, right? So planting the seeds, letting them grow. But we were friends for 5 years, where we would still go out for dinner and go to people's birthday parties and things like that. Um, and people go, but you're separated. Yep, we are. But we can still enjoy everyone together until someone came into my life. I mean, he had someone in his life, but when someone came into my life, then that was it. I was the enemy number one. I wasted too much time with my husband in my own self-discovery. And then I went into another relationship that really, after the 2 years, the relationship died, but we were in business together. And then it
Mm,
became something, well, the devil I know, right?
hmm.
And it's again too much time spent on something. And it's like, when are you going to learn, Sarah? When
Yeah,
are you going to learn? Stop giving your time away. It's precious. Look what you could be doing it with that time that's so much more productive to you and to the purpose of your what you're being here for. And if
hmm.
we're so much stuck in the yeah, but yes, but there's only one thing to do with your butt, and that is sit on it.
Yeah. Absolutely. That is true. And that's not really helpful. It's not particularly helpful when we sit on our butt about anything,
You're right.
right? Literally and figuratively.
Unless
Like,
you're contemplating, pausing and contemplating and taking the
yeah,
time to review, yes. But the yes, but, yes, but, yes, but are excuses. You're abstaining from taking the journey to your own solution, right? And it's
absolutely.
so, it's somewhere along the line, you've got to understand your life is your choice.
Yeah. And replace that but with an and if you
Yes,
can. If you can
yes,
do anything, I mean,
yes,
that's
and yes.
and
How powerful
you
is
can
that?
take a pause
Yes.
and
Mm-hmm.
not but.
Yes, exactly. Because the butter excuses, right? And the thing is, today, we really don't have an excuse. I've got 3,000 shows of incredible people like yourself sharing their wisdom, right? Sharing their knowledge, an encyclopedia here. of knowledge that is in abundance. There are TED Talks, there are other podcasts, there is Google, right? There's
Yes.
everything.
Yeah.
Even you have conversations with AI. I've had them,
Yeah.
they're extraordinary, right? And it's a reflection back, and the thing is, there's so many avenues today. We can't use the excuse that we didn't know. What
Yes.
we do need to do, and I'm going to put need in here, is be willing to step up and go, okay, I don't know what I don't know. How am I going to find out what I need to know?
And I will find out.
Yes. Be
Yeah.
proactive in your own life. Don't wait for everyone else to come to you to fix it. If you know that there's an issue that you've got to change, seek out the appropriate person for that issue
Mm-hmm.
and have them help you on your journey, because that is what we are here for, to help each other on our journey of life.
Yes.
But we've got to take onus and we've got to be proactive. We have to take that responsibility of our choices. And as
Mm-hmm.
I said, listen, learn, and apply.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, if you just start replacing but with
Mm.
and is a word that empowers choice.
Yes. And I'm going to do something about it. Next
And
question. Well, what are you going to do about it? Well, I'm going to go and do this. And
yeah.
you're suddenly having a conversation with yourself that's actually quite, you know what? You're a good cheerleader.
Yes. Yes, we can be. That's
Yes.
what I'm saying. If you want to just start shifting your mindset a little bit,
Mm.
every time you hear the word but come up in your thoughts or out of your mouth,
Yeah.
immediately correct yourself and
Put a big X over it.
Mhm.
Right? The big
Just
X
start
over it.
replacing that
Yeah.
word every
Yeah.
time you can.
Yeah.
Replace it with and it immediately empowers you for choice
Yes. I
rather than
remember there's a beautiful Bruce Lee thing that goes around on Facebook, and he talks about do not talk ill of yourself, because the universe knows no different.
That's
That
true.
that energy that you are giving to yourself, the energy, the universal energy will match it. Well, if it's of low vibration, right, then that's what you're going to get. But if you're willing to turn that frequency up, the universe will match it. And
Yeah.
then you're going to keep turning it up and keep turning it up. And then suddenly you're going to be, whew, universe and I are on the same level. I like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if we keep feeding it
Yes.
limitation and judgment, because so many of us limit and judge ourselves horribly,
Yes.
then that is what we get. We get a limited, judged version of a life experience.
Right. Yeah.
So,
There's two words I don't like is comparison and compete. You're not in competition with anyone. Leave that to actually games, and don't compare. You are unique. There's only one you. Right. And it's like we can be inspired. We can be illuminated by someone else. We can even, carve ourselves in somebody else's vibrational light because it recognizes our vibration inside of us. But the
mhm.
moment you try and be like someone else or compete with someone else, you are abstaining from being you.
Mhm.
And you can't outrun yourself. I promise you,
Yeah.
you will always be caught up.
Yeah. Competition is a power exchange. That's all
Yes.
that is. In comparison, they say is the foundation of all suffering.
Yes, I 100%. And I also, there are people that definitely do suffer because they don't know how to get out of the suffering into just struggle. With struggle, you can find a way out. So I think on some levels, some people, the suffering is a choice. Again, the victimization.
Mhm.
I get attention this way. I
Mhm.
don't actually have to take any accountability to healing myself because I can
Mhm.
just stay in this suffering and pour it over everybody. But you're going to find that there's very few people that want to be around you because
Mhm.
people can only take so much of that. And when they
Yeah.
see you're making no effort, I'll tell you a story of a woman that used to call me every week. I knew her quite well. And every week it would be, oh, you're going to jump off the bridge. This happened. And listen for an hour and a half and speak to her. And then one day she called, I'm going to jump off the bridge. And I said, which bridge? What? Which bridge? Why? Well, I just want to make sure your body's retrieved. And she goes, oh, well, what do you mean? I said, clearly anything I say is not helping. Everything I ask you to do, you're not doing. And if you're hell bent of jumping off a bridge, I can't stop you. It's your choice.
That's right. Absolutely. That's a great story.
She
It
didn't
is
like it.
true.
She's still the
Yeah.
drama queen. She's still that drama queen, but there's hardly any friends around.
Yeah. And I was saying that goes back to what I was saying about like when we're retelling our story, are you drawing power into
Mm,
yourself from
mhm.
telling the story, right? Like she was drawing power into herself. As soon as you were like, I'm not giving you
Yes.
power, I'm not giving energy to this, you're on
Yes.
your own.
Right.
Well, then she's
Yeah.
got no story to tell anymore.
Exactly, deaf ears, right? And I've
Yeah.
also, when in my own coaching, my own counseling, I draw on the analogy of a ruler, 12 inches, folks. I don't know what that is in metric. And there's 6 to 12 other people at various levels of positivity, higher frequency. And you have your 4 and 5 who realize I have to come out of my darkness, out of my sorrow, out of my pain, and take that journey to that higher vibration. But your 1, 2, and 3 are the piranhas. They're the
Mm.
energy suckers. They go after the 4 and 5s. And you see this so many times, but I really thought they were elevated. I thought their life was going great. Finally, they turned a corner and they go backwards. It's the people around them that come and they suck that energy right out. All
Hmm.
right. And because they're not going to take any accountability of re-energizing themselves, they suck the energy from everyone around them. So when you are in self-discovery, in recovery, in exploration of yourself, it is imperative that you put yourself around the right vibrational people.
Absolutely. It will probably mean more letting go.
More letting go, more embracing of who you are,
Hmm.
more illumination, more
Hmm.
enlightenment, and basically getting into gear a lot faster.
Yeah. Yeah. The faster you do it, the
Yeah.
faster it will all shift
Yes.
in a way that doesn't feel so daunting or
Yeah.
overwhelming,
Yes.
for sure.
And it doesn't mean that we don't have scars anymore. We've all got scars. I'm very, very
Absolutely.
aware of the scars that I have. And I know that, those scars sometimes make me look at certain situations in a different light. And I have to be aware of it. I'm looking at that situation through the scars. Now, if
Hmm.
I remove the scars and look at it from a place of exploration or hope, what do I see? And I
Hmm.
know I have to be conscious of it. So it doesn't mean that we suddenly go into the twilight zone and everything in life is hunky-dory. We are
No.
always going to still carry stuff, but it's being aware of it. It's like when stuff comes up from the past, you go, you know what? Oh, hi, interesting that you're here. But I want to point something out to you. Look how far I have come since I was that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great, great lesson for people, even
Mm,
myself, to
mm.
remember. Because we all can fall into
Yeah.
those ways. It's like you said, there's not this false
Yes.
positivity, everything is love and light all the time now. That's not the reality. That's not what we're here to do, honestly. We're here to experience
Mm.
the full spectrum.
Yes.
That is how we grow and learn, but it is also the opportunity to be more loving and light giving and filled to ourselves and to everyone around us.
Because the more light and exuberance energy we have, the more a cup runneth over on everyone else. And we are
Absolutely.
creating a better society, a better world, because we're making better choices and we're resonating in a vibration of frequency that is one of kindness, caring, and love.
Yes.
And you can't knowingly do harm to anyone else when you're coming from that space. For to
Yes.
do so is to hurt you.
Yes.
So,
And all vibration will rise to meet itself.
yes.
So the more of us, that's
Hmm.
why when and that's why sometimes it will also pull you down to meet
Yes.
it at the lower level. Like that's
Yes.
why when you walk into a room and everyone seems miserable, you don't leave feeling so great. You might
No.
not be as low as they are, but you're
Right.
lower than when you walked in. And the
Right.
opposite thing happens. And so
Yes.
that's why we should, try and be as intentional as we can and be mindful of the fact that when we go out in the world, whether it's on social media or in anything that we place out there, any way that we interact with anyone at the grocery store, at the gas station, it doesn't matter. You are always being presented this opportunity to raise the vibration of those around you.
And never ever underestimate of looking somebody directly in their eyes and giving them a smile. It may
Yeah.
be the only smile they've received that day, and you have no
Yeah.
idea how
Yeah.
that can warm that heart, how that can make them feel seen,
Yeah.
how in many cases it could be a decision between life and death,
Mm-hmm.
right? We don't know that. And
Yeah.
there's been circumstances where it's been said, but just that, it's, and maybe I'm old school this way, but when you open the door or when you let somebody go in the car or somebody's walking across the road, if I'm walking across a road and the car stops for me, I just do a thank you. Just,
Mm-hmm.
just a verbal thank you that they're not going to be able to hear, but with a hand, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah.
same with somebody, car going this, anything. How much effort does it take to make that acknowledgement that someone did something for you and a simple thank you? A
Yeah.
simple thank you. That gratitude carries so much weight, so much weight.
Well, and I think it's even more basic than that. It's about actually just allowing somebody to be seen and
Yes,
acknowledged.
yes,
And we talked about earlier about the things that we can do to heal that child in us and the
mm,
things that we can do to help raise children now. And we intrinsically, biologically are wired up to seek to be acknowledged and seen. And so
yes,
that's why even those teeny tiny little acts, like you said, of just greeting some, making eye contact
yes.
and, okay, thank you, instead of being mindless about it, gives us the opportunity to heal some little part of that person.
Walking down the street, just look at someone, make eye contact. Hi, nice day.
Yeah.
Anything like that.
Yeah.
What
It
we
makes
have
people really uncomfortable.
for those that feel like us.
I used
But
to do an experiment about that
right,
when I
right.
would walk the dog to
Yeah,
see like how many people I could engage with
yeah,
and how many people like are like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. She
you're
just
right.
said hi to me,
And why? Why are we like that? Because we've been taught to be fearful of people.
Yeah.
Whereas if we actually engaged with people in a nanosecond or minute or whatever the case is, we would realize there is no fear here. The fear is what I'm carrying. It's not in
Mhm.
the situation before me.
No.
And
Again,
how
this
do we
goes back to the
recognize fear? Yeah,
experiences, the past
exactly.
experiences
Yes.
just being this over influence on
Yes.
everything.
Yeah. And also, kind of again, what I call the Fox News, pimple into volcanic eruption. We know that the establishments out there that fear sells. Fear has people in their control because when you have given up your control because of fear, you are no longer in decision making for yourself. You've given that power over. And they
Mhm.
know the way to keep you in that state is to keep you fearful. You've got to make the choice yourself. Do I wish to be fearful? Do I wish to be in that state? Or do I wish to enlighten myself as to what I can do about the situation so I'm not living in a state of fear?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like everything keeps coming back to the point of choice.
Yes, it does. It
It
does.
really does. It
Yeah.
comes back to how do I choose to live in this world? How do I
Mm.
choose to live in this body, in this life, in this mind, in this heart?
This soul. And
Yeah.
how do I look at the many beautiful layers of my life who have made me who I am today? And is there something I'm leaving out? My past child or an old wound? Or, that's something that happened to me on September 23rd, 2000 and something. And it's like, what the hell am I thinking about that? But clearly that the fact that it's come up is something that you need to address that says, hey, I've been knocking at your door and you've been ignoring me. Would you address this pain, please? Right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's that compass.
Hmm.
And you just need to keep digging at it with a why until you can say, oh, because
Yeah,
that's why we repeat patterns.
right.
That's why the memories, the experience, it might look different, but shows
Mm.
up in a different
Just
relationship.
wearing a
But
different dress.
I would say, but it's the same freaking
Yes,
pattern. That's the
yes,
reason why we repeat things because we
yes,
haven't gotten to the real root of the why.
right.
And
Yeah.
so it's about, okay, here this is again.
Well, I
It,
married a gentleman in another country who was Oriental, and I still married aspects of my father.
mm,
Right?
there you
And,
go.
and
Yeah.
you're right. So, like, I thought, oh no, totally different. But nope.
Yeah.
And the question comes, did I make him like my father? Or did I see my father inside of him?
I don't know. That's a great question because I'll tell you this. I always said my ex-husband is very, very, very similar to my father. I mean, they have very similar personalities, characteristics, traits, all kinds of things. And I actually didn't know my father. My parents divorced when I was 6, and I never reestablished a relation. I had
Ah,
zero contact with him until I was in my 20s. And then when I got in my 20s, I was like, oh my gosh, my husband is just like my father.
Hmm.
And so I don't know, did I really project that? I
Yeah.
mean, I must have absorbed enough in the
Yes.
first 6 years.
Hmm.
So I don't know if I was projecting
It's
it
yeah,
through the
it's
lens,
unconscious.
but
It's
is
unconscious.
it feeding the
It's the
wound?
frequency that we're riding on, right? And we're projecting that frequency and the information that's in that frequency.
Yeah.
And unless we acknowledge that frequency, unless we truly stop and ask ourselves the question, when they start doing something like, hang on, that's like dad, or oh God, I'm becoming like my mother.
Hmm.
It's like,
Hmm.
okay, stop there for a moment. What is it about this situation that is mimicking this, and why? And
Yeah.
what can I do about it? Nip it in the bud before it becomes the volcanic eruption.
Yeah. Because I think it's in some way it's feeding that wound. And so
Yes.
again, it goes back to like, this is another sign to look for, So if it's feeding that wound, then that means it's not healed. It's the same thing with the story, right? Like if you're not getting an emotional reaction out of it, then it's healed. Then you've moved past that. You're able to give power from it instead.
Yeah, but my
Same thing
dad
when we relive those patterns.
exactly. And my dad died when I was 11, and I was at boarding school quite a lot of the time, and quite sickly and things. So I have memories, fond memories of X, Y, and Z, but also in the last few years of his life when he knew he was dying, which he could have avoided. But I think he was a fighter pilot in the war. And he was tired of fighting. Come on, Death, come and get me. Instead of
Mm,
going, I'll change my lifestyle and
mm,
I can continue living. I always resented him for that. Why didn't you live for us, Dad? Why didn't you fight
mm,
for your life, right? So as a kid, why did you leave us? But then I also realized that the relationship between him and my mother at that time was so bad. And so really the vibration I was getting was the reaction between the two of them. And I became my mother's martyr, and
mm.
and I drew the browbeating of my father. And that's what my relationship with my husband came. Now, did I know I was doing that? Was I even aware what I was doing? No.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Right.
we've just got to be willing when we see something to invest. It's not worrying the sore. It's opening up the wound to go, where's the root of you? Because if I don't take care of the root of you, you're going to constantly keep festering throughout my body.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's always a part of us that wants to complete these cycles.
Yes. Yes.
That's why they keep coming up because it's looking for completion. It's looking for healing. It's looking to be resolved in some way. It's looking to not have it be a draw of power anymore.
Yeah.
It's looking for us to be able to use it to our own better creation.
Yes.
And
Would you
so
get me out of this goddamn loop, please?
ah, that's the truth.
Yes.
That's the
And we're
truth.
just
That's what
going
I'm
la la la
saying.
la 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 la.
I know. Bless those people that never get sick of themselves. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've been like, no, I'm freaking sick of myself. Like,
Yes.
I don't blame
Yes.
anybody else. This is me that keeps being blind to this pattern and making the same choices until I get back to the place where I see it again. I'm like,
Yes.
what the hell is wrong with me?
Right.
I don't want to do this
And we
anymore.
find that we will forgive other people quicker and easier than we
Oh,
do in
absolutely.
forgiving of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And because we all think that we should have known better. Why did you do that? You should have known better. Well,
Mm-hmm.
if we knew better, we wouldn't have kept doing it. Right?
Yeah.
Now you know
Yeah.
better. Do something about it. Don't keep
Yeah.
beating yourself up for the
Yeah.
choices you made, right? It's like
Yeah.
now you know better. It's the now that you deal with.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And nobody limits or judges us like we do ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
No
Hangman,
one does.
persecutor, executor. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But we have to realize that. And I
Hmm.
think that's the thing, that there's unfortunately still people that want to still blame somebody else, right?
It's
And
a very
so they can't
narcissistic
see that.
behavior, which we're seeing very much on many, many levels. And we've got some poster kings out there that are narcissistic, that are leading the way. And that, narcissism can be in each and every one of this. But I think because we have a society that has been so um, unable to speak to their pain, unaware of the pain, or never given permission to talk about their pain,
Yes.
that narcissism has kind of stepped in there, where it's like, no, it's not me, it's not me, it's everybody else. As long as I've got somebody
Yeah.
else to blame, I don't have to blame me, or I don't have to take accountability for it. And we've got to recognize that. It's only
Yeah.
when we recognize that we could do something about it. So what do you do for people? And I think everything doesn't matter how much, what you're doing, neuroscience, everything else, it's all coming back to what's in your past that's contaminating your present and going to
Hmm.
stop your future. So I imagine that everything goes and stems from there. So what do you do with your clientele? How do you take them through that process? What kind of programs do you have for them?
Well, so I mean, everything is individual, right? We talked about this. There is not a single one of us that experiences even the exact same
Mm.
situation the same way, and we're going to take away and we're going to carry those things. So, first and foremost is always being able to individualize with somebody and really get to a place to understand them. I'm very fortunate that Spirit gives me information
Yes.
to be
Download.
able to instantly. And I
Yeah.
could tell you some really crazy experiences, God bless
Mm.
strangers,
Mm.
that had me like show up and just download and start telling them all this crazy stuff
Been
about their
doing it
life.
since childhood. And
Yeah.
people go, "Well, can you repeat that? No. Do you know what you're talking about? No. I
I've
was
had
just
people
told to give
say
it to you.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, and I've had people be like, "Who the hell are you?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, how do you know this about me?"
Exactly.
Because
Exactly.
they would be saying something, I'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's because
Yeah.
basically your grandmother raised you and your
Mm.
grandfather was your best friend," and they're like, "Who are you?
Yeah.
How do
Yeah.
you know this?" So I mean, it has to be really, like I said, I'm blessed, and that's why I do what I do because I can intuitively pull down
Yeah.
immediately what the key points are, where their key memories are, what their key experiences are, what their key beliefs are. And then we'll move through. I have three different kinds of packages depending on how much help somebody feels like they need, or they will bounce back and forth. Like they may start off with one that's really just kind of more of a consulting package almost, where they check in with me. They get 4 sessions they can use over 6 months.
Yeah.
They can have two individual, like just text or quick message, email kind of things a month. Just kind of like this touch point where they use me almost as like a bumper to try and navigate as much as they
Right.
can by
The
themselves.
sounding board. Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's that level of it. And then there's a much more deeper where somebody is like I keep saying, like, I am sick of myself. Let's just dig in full force as hard as we can. Let's just get this out. Like, just get it out.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's a different kind, and that's really intense. And it's 6 sessions in 9 weeks, and they tend to be like 2.5 hour sessions.
Hmm.
And we actually have two in the first week. So that's really intense. And then there's some people that, again, just know that they need so much more than that, that they've neglected themselves. They've not listened to themselves. And there's other ways where I can bring in other healers that also help them. And we do a lot more explanation and exploration of who they are. Like I said, part of my gifting is that I get to also help explain to people who they are, because
Right.
sometimes they just don't. But they do. We always do, but it's that, again, it's that validation. It's giving them permission to go, oh, yeah, that is who I am.
You're showing
Yeah.
them the mirror,
Yeah,
right? For them to see
absolutely.
themselves. And very often we just can't see ourselves. And
Yeah.
we need that reflection from other people who can see us and like, I am, I
Hmm.
do.
Yeah.
And we don't realize it because
Yeah.
we're so in it that we don't
Yeah.
realize what we do. We need that outside person that is with loving kindness and care and consideration and compassion can show us who we are for us to understand where we're at and know what to do about it.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite things. It's one of those things where I always feel like it's a gift to me because it
Mm.
makes me feel so awesome to
Yes.
be able to see someone in their most whole and healed and highest self.
Yes.
And I can see it so clearly when I meet people, even just meeting them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're so beautiful.
Yes.
And like I said, it's exciting to me. It always feels like, yeah, I'll give this to you, but I feel like it's a gift back to me to be able to
Yeah.
see and witness in the world that everyone really does have that higher potential. Everyone really does have this whole and beautiful self. And so,
We talk very much, obviously, in business, we need the money exchange because that's, fortifies the human needs. But
mhm,
when you're doing something like you're doing, it is actually the enrichment and the abundance of that energy exchange that really is feeding you.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I probably should raise my prices, honestly, Sarah. No,
I know I get yelled at all the time because I
because
do this
everyone's
by
like, this is so much more valuable than what you
exactly.
charge
Yeah.
me for,
And
right?
I do all my shows by donation. And people say, what do you mean free will? And I said, it's got to be up to you. The listener, the people I interview, it's got to be what is it worth to you? And also I don't want to exclude people that have so much wisdom but don't have the money or the business or anything else. So, the knowledge here is free, but it's up to you how you wish to support it. And I get
Yeah.
flack all the time.
Yeah.
Why don't I have that dollar sign? I said, I have a sign that is so much richer than the dollar, but if it produces the dollar, then that's its free will. And it has to be that way. I can't
Yeah.
fight it.
Yeah. Well, and
Right?
it goes back to everything else that we were saying that I believe because I give stuff away all the time. People are always like,
Mm,
you shouldn't be doing that. And I'm
I
like,
know.
yeah, well, maybe I shouldn't be, but that's what feels right in my
Right.
heart. And
Yes.
I have an absolute belief that that always comes back to feed me in return. And so when you believe that,
Mhm.
there's no scarcity to
Right.
not give from, you
Right.
know?
Exactly.
So,
One
yeah.
way or the other. Right.
Yeah,
And, I'm
absolutely.
very much a person like kind of the more you give out, you're receiving in the giving, not just in somebody returning that gift in a way, but the receiving uh, of the gift is in the giving of the gift and knowing
Yeah.
what it means for someone else. And
100%.
that is the cosmic enrichment. And if the cosmic enrichment, actually, if the dollar matched the cosmic enrichment, we'd all be bloody rich.
Exactly. Exactly.
But the
Oh, but that
commerce
is
of that is
true.
behind in the situation. But the thing is, when you realize the value of
Hmm.
that cosmic enrichment, and you
Hmm.
really actually understand the really kind of spiritual commerce behind that,
Yeah.
it is soul blowing.
Yeah.
Not mind
Well,
blowing,
and
soul
it's
blowing.
I would say, and it's ironic too, because I felt so much gratitude
Hmm.
for being able to gift people with the way that I could see them and what I could
Yes,
know about them, that I did not do this as a profession. Like I did not incorporate
right.
my intuitiveness out loud as, I did not charge for it in
Right.
any kind of way because I felt so grateful for my
Yes.
experience in being the giver of the
Yes.
information
I hear you,
that it
girl.
seemed like, but it's for me. Like it makes me feel good. It makes me feel
Yeah.
purposeful. It makes me feel fulfilled. Like, how am I going to charge people for that? I'm getting so
Right.
much
But
out of
also
it.
you when you're downloading at unexpected times and the message is for that person, you don't know when that message is coming through to you. I will
Yeah,
be on a
absolutely.
show with someone and suddenly I go into counseling mode, I go into vision mode. All right.
Yeah,
And it's like,
all
well,
the time.
clearly this is the place. I mean, I have to do it,
Yeah,
and it's this, I could see the possibilities. I had Susan on the glass, beautiful glass jewelry, and I said, have you thought about blah, 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 blah,
yeah,
writing? And
yeah,
I can't help when I see that, I have
yeah,
to share it wherever it is or whatever the situation is. What someone
yeah,
does with it is up to them. But if
absolutely.
I see it, I have to share it because that's the gift I've been given to share with others, like
Yeah,
yourself, right? And that is
yeah,
the beautiful cosmic energy having our backs, being the wind behind us to do what we do.
yeah. And it's exactly that piece of it that started me on focusing to work with business owners because I was a business consultant for like
Mm.
20 years.
Right.
And so I didn't always, I had this in and out relationship with my spiritual gifts. I was very spiritually open when I was a child, but it
Yes.
wasn't supported. It wasn't understood. I got into
Yeah.
more trouble. Like I just didn't know. And no,
Right.
I had no framework for it. And so I really kind of turned it off. I say that, but I didn't actually completely.
Turned
But
it
I had
down.
no level. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
had no level of understanding again
Right.
of it. So when I first started being a business consultant, I would get these ideas
Yes.
that were completely random, but they were completely thought out. Like sometimes I would know people's names and they would be in Australia. Like, I mean, and I would get these business owners the most incredible results really quickly because I would just know you're going after the wrong. We got to target this
Mm.
market. We got to do
Yeah.
this. We got to do that. And so, I mean, that's part of why I focus on working with business owners now because that business information, just like you were saying with the artist with the glass
Mm.
jewelry, like you get all that.
Yeah.
Like that's one of my veins. And I feel like, everybody with spiritual gifts, we kind of each have our own sort of vein of
Mm.
expertise, right? You know, it's like not all mathematicians can
Yes.
do the same kind of math. Not all intuitives do the same kind of
Hmm.
intuitive. We each have our own vein. And so, yeah, the business stuff has always been, and it's fun to me. It's fun to see somebody like light up and all of a sudden, again, there's this recognition of, I've been thinking about that for 3 months. Okay, well, then this is your calling card. This is
Right,
says
exactly. This is the
you're
green
lined up.
light.
Let's go for this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And
exactly.
the other thing is, if people aren't willing to really look at their mental health, it doesn't matter what kind of great business they've got. It will always get screwed up along the line because of the discontent within you. And they don't realize you are your business. And so whatever
Absolutely.
turmoil is inside of you will come out in your business. So although this is under mental health awareness, it is for all people and all walks of
Absolutely.
life. And that if you want to be successful in business, people can feel an off vibration.
Yeah.
Hang on, I just know there's something off about that person. And that is the turmoil inside of you that is coming out. If
Yeah.
you've made peace with that, if you've loved and nurtured and moved past that, grieved for it, and now you've stepped into your own light, what they're going to get from you is the exuberance of yourself. And
Yeah.
when they buy you, they will buy from you.
Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely, we are holistic beings.
Yes.
And I say to people repeatedly, we like to think that we can compartmentalize and we cannot. Subconsciously, energetically, we can't compartmentalize anything. And it's really the reason why my business pivoted and shifted from just being a business consultant to actually going, okay, come to me for your business, but we're going to look at everything.
Yeah.
And so there's something that's happening here in you that you are feeling directionless, or you feel like you're moving backwards, or you're not profitable, or you're losing employees, or
Oh,
it's
you're
not
going in the wrong
fulfilling
direction
anymore.
altogether.
Yeah, whatever. Exactly. Sometimes you have to let the whole business go. That
Yes,
happens all the time.
yes, yes. And it kind of reminds me of, the wonderful movie Harnessing the Wind. And it's like when the wind goes to the turbines to make it turn over that generates electricity for us, the wind doesn't stop being everywhere else. All you've done is captured
Yeah.
that wind and downloaded it into a purpose. Otherwise, that wind is out there all the time, somewhere, right?
I
And so,
love that. I'm such an analogy person. I love that. I might steal that.
it's a good movie,
Yes.
by the way, Harnessing the Wind. True story, too. Very, very good. And again,
Cool.
somebody who followed their intuition, that had the driving force, wanted to resolve a situation and was willing to do the work to do so against all odds. A true
Hmm.
inspiration, a true story. I think it's on Netflix and I highly recommend it. I love those kind of stories. I love seeing somebody triumph.
Hmm.
Despite
Me too.
despite the hurricane around them or the chaos around them, they triumph in their purpose, and I love it. It just lights me right up. So,
Hmm.
somebody
Same.
wants to be your client.
Yes.
How do they reach you? And, do you have a call with them first to kind of discover?
Yes.
And I also know that you've kind of got a free gift for them here as well,
Correct. I mean, you can go to my website and actually it will pop up on there. You can right away get a guide that gives you steps to start taking immediately to start seeing some shift in your life, in your business that will help you feel more balanced and like you're starting to move forward in a new direction. So my website is www.alchemy, alkemai.com. And that's also where you can go to set up a discovery call with me. I do have all kinds of social media platforms. I'm at Siera Intuitively Knows. Sierra's got one R in it. On Facebook and Instagram.
Siera. Yes,
Yes. And so you can always direct message me through that, or I'm on LinkedIn also, Sierra Sambrosky.
right.
So
And it's hello@alchemy.com
you
as well
can
for you.
email.
Right.
Yes,
Yep.
correct.
Right. So,
Yep.
and the
Anyway.
and the thing you offer that 15 minutes, which is like, the thing is what I say about people listening to these shows is you've got to hear enough here to know whether she's got what you need.
Mhm.
You've already picked up her signature of vibration and you know whether you resonate with it or not. So there
Yes.
is no question of, do I pick up the email? Do I contact and just say, okay, let's have a chat and see if I can open this door? You've already felt her. Right? So listen, learn, now apply.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and the reality is like you said, I also had shared the link with you, which I'm sure you'll share with them, to go ahead and drop into my calendar to do a 15-minute mini session, which is different than a discovery call.
Right.
But if you really kind of feel like I love having my tires kicked, because nothing juices me up more than being able to really like just channel with somebody real quickly and do rapid fire like that.
Exactly.
So if you
And,
really want to.
if you're listening to this down the road, then all you have to do is go to selfdiscoverywisdom.com and in the search, put in Siera, Siera, Sambrosky, Sambrosky, and all her information will come up on her show page. How to listen to the show, where to listen to the show, and all of her information that she has there, how you to reach her and everything about it. So again, listen, learn, but if you don't apply, then all it is knowledge floating around in you. When you actually apply, then you're making it, stepping into the wisdom that serves you.
Yes,
So it's as
sure
simple as
is.
that.
And it's always there to serve us. We just
It
have to
is.
choose it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Turn that knob. This thing about digital, just going from one thing to the other. I like, hog walks, 9.5 station, turn that knob. It's those things that are in between where the frequency is, right? So,
Yeah.
but if you're not inquisitive about your own life, if you're not participating in your own life, if you're not willing to learn, to listen, and to apply, you're going to stay stuck. And if
Mm-hmm.
you don't like being stuck, and you're afraid of taking the action. A lot of people think, but if I open up that Pandora box, it's going to be too much. No,
Yes.
no, it is like you have a look at all the garbage you've been carrying around with you, and it's looking at what needs to go. What do you need to heal and love yourself about? The weight that you're going to take off your spirit,
Mm-hmm.
off the very essence of you, is just going to make you float in the wind. And now
Mm-hmm.
you can be more directional because you have a better understanding of what your choices are.
Absolutely. 100%.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. This has been wonderful.
My pleasure. We really covered a lot. I hope people have book clubs. I encourage people to have podcast clubs where everyone
That's a
listens
great
to the
idea.
podcast and then have a nice glass of wine and cheese or whatever you want to do and take notes and then share them. What did you get out of it? Have the conversation, take it further. You'll be amazed at how it opens up, things inside of you that you didn't know that were there, and that helps propel you forward. So don't be afraid to listen again, to share it with other people, and to have the conversation about it, because that's how we grow.
Mm-hmm. I love that idea of the podcast club. I might start that.
Yeah, definitely. Other people's perspective sheds light on your own,
Yes,
right? Definitely.
absolutely.
Thank you so much, love. And to everyone else out there, remember, in order to move forward on that clean slate, that having that wonderful clean canvas where the choices in front of you are clear and you're open and willing to receive that wisdom, you've got to deal with the things that you're carrying with you from your past, things to let go of, things to love and nurture and heal. Because when you do, you're so much lighter, you're so much clearer, and it's so much easier to walk forward. So until next time, folks, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. There are so many more for you here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. Just go to the podcast tag at the top there and you will see all the many genres and all 3,000 shows ready for your listening. We are here to serve you, to help you on your journey of life, and we know that through inspiration it begets invitation. We are supported by you, the listeners, and those that we interview. Anything that you can spare us in donation would be greatly accepted, and we do hope that you enjoy the next show.